Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Hello, I'm great.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for. Let me just start by saying, thank you for joining us today on this beautiful Sunday. I hope it's great wherever you're from as well. Could you start by like telling us a little bit about yourself and this title that I believe came out a week and a half ago now?
It came out on Friday, so it's only a couple of days.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Oh, that's right. I got an early copy of it. That's why. I think I played it for I played it. I think not this last Friday, like 2 Fridays ago, and I immediately fell in love. And I'm like, I got to get in touch with this developer, and have them tell us about this thing that he's created. so,
Okay, great that you liked it. Thanks for having me in. Well, about me, I'm a solo developer,
mhm.
and I used to do games with a bigger bunch of people. We used to be like 6 guys, and we were mostly on mobile. But it didn't really work out. We were working on a bigger racing title, free to play, and we realized that we need another 2 years for that team of 6, and we decided to abandon the project because we were out of money. But I was still not ready to go back to business software and things. I used to run software company, and
Uh-huh.
I decided, okay, let's get this one final game. If it goes, then I'll stay in games. If not, then maybe it's not meant for me. And I started working on Human Fall Flat, and then I released a prototype on itch.io, and somehow people liked it. And then in the end, I got in with publisher Curve Digital,
Mhm.
and they allowed me to finish the game to bring it to what it is now. And here it is on Steam and on stream.
How did you come up with the concept? Before it even reached itch.io. What is there anything that inspired you to create this particular style of game?
Well, basically, I start all my game concept from input controls, looking for interesting control schemes and new concepts. So I was playing with Intel's RealSense camera, that's depth sensing, something like Kinect, but on your computer.
Mhm.
And I came up with concept that let's try controlling guys' hands to do some tasks, and I implemented, but it was quite difficult to control because you don't get any feedback and you move hands out of the view of the camera, and also to walk around you had to use head, which is a quite clumsy way to do.
Mhm.
So I mapped it to keyboard and mouse and to controller, and I realized that that looks good.
Mm.
So I made. I was really inspired by games like Portal and Limbo, and if you play the game, you might feel some of the mechanics from Limbo and some of the setup a little bit Portalish.
Mhm.
But and then all with linear puzzles basically. But then I was playtesting a lot. And I saw that people will do whatever they can not to solve the puzzles correct way. And instead of trying to block all possible ways to cheat the game, I started throwing in more solutions to all the puzzles, making levels bigger with more shortcuts and things like that. And
Ah,
somehow
yes.
people like that too.
My immediate reaction when I first saw this was, "Oh, cool! It kind of has like characters kind of similar to Gang Beasts." Is there? How did that happen? Is there like is there a particular style? With these, I guess like super ragdoll type. Are you familiar with Gang Beasts at all? Um,
Yes, I played it with my friend once, and actually it showed me that it is possible to make active ragdoll, which is totally controllable in game,
okay.
because
Mhm.
up to now, ragdolls were mostly used in first-person shooters when someone dies,
Mhm.
and they do deserve to live. And Gang Beasts showed that let ragdolls live. And I was working. I made actually 3 versions totally from scratch,
Mhm. Mhm.
trying to get away from Gang Beasts look.
Yes, yes, yes.
Because I thought it will be a big problem and people will say, okay, you just copied the style and everything. But then I realized that the game that I'm making is so much different,
Hmm.
and also it's extremely hard to come up with something that doesn't look like anything else created in game industry in past 30 years or whatever.
Hmm.
So basically, the role of game designer is building up on what game industry brought to people and crafting totally new experience that people will enjoy. And if you skip just one part of that, you are making a crime, because in one case you are not learning from what is good.
Hmm.
In other case, you are just copying or stealing or whatever. So basically, most of the great games that there are out, they are not really like built from ground zero. They use
Hmm.
some mechanics that work, but they really create some new experience for the player. So that's what it has with Gang Beasts, other ragdoll based games like Octodad, for example.
Ah,
They
yes, yes, yes. Oh yeah, I completely forgot about Octodad having a very you call it active ragdoll. Um, yeah, I'd forgotten. Not Gang Beasts. Octodad had a similar setup. So the reception of this demo that was originally out. Now I imagine. Right now I'm playing some of the more easier levels. I originally jumped into. I played a lot of this when I first had it downloaded. And um, I think I'm on like maybe level 7 or 8. The one with the rowboat. I realize that there's no way I'm going to be able to figure out how to play this part right now while I'm having a discussion with you. So I've like jumped back a couple notches. But I'm assuming this level that I'm playing right now, I'm in like a canyon. This was probably part of the original demo. Is that correct?
Yes, it's part of the original demo, and this level has very specific mission in the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's about teaching you to climb and parkour.
Mm.
In the levels before that, they were focusing on different mechanics,
Mm-hmm.
but basically now you start with simple platformer where you just jump and then you get stuck and you have to learn to climb. And later game builds a lot on parkour, and also the first level, even the first intro level, the mansion, once you learn the parkour, it's a totally different level. So you can play the same levels more times. By learning new mechanics, you can
Mm-hmm.
find different ways to move around them.
Mm. And I did notice that the game does do a good job like introducing you to these new concepts instead of just saying, "Okay, here's one concept and we'll just keep building off it." Rather, you start to actually when I first played this, I was like, "There's no way you can do some of these puzzles." But then you start figuring, okay, well, you can like lift yourself up, and there's these there's a lot of all these mechanics. They seem to build on top of each other, kind of like building blocks, right? Is that something that you really focused on early on in your prototypes and whatnot?
Yeah, that was it. And also with every level later, I don't add verbs to the character. So you can
Mm.
only move your hands, jump, and move your hands to some direction.
Okay.
But basically, there are things like gadgets in Siege with catapults and things. Then you have water dynamics, and it has actual hydrodynamics coded in, and aerodynamics for the sail. So
Oh, okay.
if you ever sailed a real boat, you will find things familiar, like going upwind and stuff.
Hmm.
And in the final level, you have electricity, and it calculates currents and everything to simulate that. So every level brings new mechanics to the game.
Are there Easter eggs in this game? Because I think I just found one.
Y- Yes, there are.
Interesting.
Uh,
Okay. Yeah, I was jumping
yeah,
around and I came to this level. I'm like, why is there a cage right there? Um.
if you take a look a little bit right, you will see a path
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
can get somewhere.
Oh, I see.
And and going through the right side, it's sort of parkour. So if you are not efficient, you will not get there, but
Hmm.
once you pass the game, it's extremely easy to go there. And
Ah, I see.
there's hidden cave with yet another mechanics, which is
Oh, I see. So this is kind of adding to some of the replayability. Like, okay, well, you may have already beaten all the levels, but here's something new and interesting you can do.
yeah. So going here, you will reach something which is totally optional to do. Okay, it has achievement there.
Ah, I see. Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I had not. Oh, wow. Okay. This is cool. I'm probably not going to be able to do this yet. I don't think I've learned the parkour. Maybe I have, and I just don't realize.
No, you already got here.
Okay, this is okay. Okay, this is why there was a light because I probably want to see where I'm going. Um, so now the reception you got on itch.io or itch.io, I never know how to pronounce that properly.
Neither do I.
How how is the? Oh, this is a maze. Oh, this is cool. Um, so how is the reaction exactly? Was it, in other words, um, how did you like walk me through the way that people give you feedback to the point where you realize, okay, well, this is clearly something people are interested in. I got to spend more time on this. And was it like a pet project, and eventually you decided to make it a full game, or were you planning to make a full game to begin with? Like, how was it? Could you walk me through that, I guess, experience?
Okay, I was deciding to make a full game since the early play tests, and those were not on itch.io. Basically, I make a prototype and I give some initially friends and family and some students, for example, to play, and I'm watching them. I'm not asking any question. That's part of like game design. You simply give a game and then you observe certain things. What's the engagement, what people like, where they get unhappy about the game, and then you try to find out why, and so on. So I saw that this sort of mechanics has something in it if done right, and then I decided to make a game. But to really check and to support the development partially, I launched it on itch.io.
I see.
And then it got really out of hand when Dragast and Machi started streaming it on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a game that no one knew. There were some sales, but suddenly they started playing it, and a month or something later, Markiplier started playing Jacksepticeye, and out of nowhere,
Oh,
I had
wow.
like 20 million views, and I was nowhere near the actual release, and it was a little bit upsetting because now everybody knows the game and watches it, and I will have to release it 3 months or 4 months later, and no one will stream it again, and things like that. But basically, seeing the reaction of the streamers and how much expression can they add to the game. So it's not just playing the game; it's watching them do something in this strange world of human, and it was really cool for streamers as well, I guess.
It's a
Go
puzzle game
left.
with some humor built into it. And you can't not have the humor just because of the way that the guy moves. And so there's all these funny situations like you're seriously trying to solve something, and all of a sudden you do something accidental, and it's just a great, hilarious moment.
Yeah, I used quite some contrast in the game. So initial level, it looks formal in a way. I took the voice actor, which has this deep, nice voice and sounds serious, but the words that he tells are not that serious, especially in tutorials and things.
Ah.
Also, when composing the music, I could have gone with something more like childish or happy music, but I thought, okay, let's drop this kind of serious music and it will make more contrast. So initially you play the game, you get mixed emotions with that, because the guy is funny, but the whole setup is sort of serious. So yeah, it's a mixed game.
Yep. Now, when you had put this together, did you expect it to get the kind of traction it ultimately received? Um,
Not to this level. I was expecting that it could be loved by people because I did a lot of playtesting, and I knew what qualities it has. So it was not really a blind guess. Let's finish the game and see what's happening, because I did a couple of games like that, and I know exactly what happens when you go that way. Nothing.
right.
So it was building upon things that people like and throwing away the things that people hate. But I could not have planned or anticipated that it will attract so much attention.
Excellent. And so, what would you, I guess, like in terms of technology and stuff like that? Do you mind sharing with us some of the technology that was used to put this together? Perhaps for some aspiring game developers themselves who may be like, well, I'd love to make a game. Well, I guess this is kind of almost a two-part question. Well, so like, what kind of tech are you using? And then we can move on to the, if you have any advice for the aspiring guys. Is this an engine you've created from scratch? Is this using Unity? Is it using
It's
Unreal, etc.?
Unity.
Mhm.
It's Unity. I have several sort of sub-engines running, which I created, like the physics, the audio engine, electricity simulations, whatever. But the core is Unity with its physics and lighting and whatever.
Mhm.
I do all the modeling in Blender.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's a free tool. Unity is also a free tool. Okay, now I purchased Unity.
Mhm.
But I made most of the game with a free license.
Right, with the personal edition until you decided
Yeah,
to publish. Mhm.
yeah. So those were the main tools. Okay, for the music and audio, I have Cubase and I have Recording Studio, which I built with my own hands. And I get obsessed with really crazy things. So one of them was was composing and audio engineering and things like that. So I built a studio. So there I use Cubase for recording music. But
Oh,
basically
wow.
for the game itself. Just Unity and Blender.
Do you have any advice for some aspiring game artists out there, or game designers, or game programmers, etc., folks who want to get into the industry, whether they're in college or whether they're currently working at a backup company and are like, well, what if I wanted to make a video game? And I'm sure not. I mean, obviously, not everyone can do it, but what would your advice be for them?
Well, there are a couple of advices. One being, and I guess most important, you have to finish things.
Mhm.
So in order to make that happen, you have to pick the scope that is right for your learning point at that stage. So pick something that you can finish in a month or two. Don't try making next Halo if you just started coding. And then as soon as you get it working somehow, the core mechanics, just a little bit of it, show it at least to your friends. So expose your game very early because you will get a lot of feedback and you can stop wasting time on things that no one will like. So those are the two main advices. Don't lock yourself up, show your games as early as possible, and start small.
So that's a really interesting point you made. Not spending too much time, or sorry, releasing something early and getting early feedback, because it's always possible that if you end up going and spending a year on something, and you might think it's the most brilliant thing in the world, you go put it out there, and people are like, "This is shit. Why were you doing this for the last year?"
Yeah,
I guess
exactly.
like trial
And
and error with user feedback.
yeah, that's one thing. Another thing, if you are aspiring game developer, most probably after you made a game for 2 months, the next game will be so much better because you can do so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And if you will start planning like 1 year, 2 year games based on the knowledge that you have at that point, you are not using the full potential. So the best is to go with small, short projects, and itch.io is perfect platform for those.
Mm-hmm.
Experimental things, don't plan to earn a fortune from the first things, but really work and start understanding what players like about games, what are your strong sides, build some technical skills, graphical skills, game design skills, whatever, and make each game a little bit better and closer to the players.
Closer to what they maybe are you saying closer to what they may have enjoyed by your previous project? AKA
Yeah.
something that you may not even realize is a strong suit that
Yeah, exactly. You by showing your game to people, to players, you will discover some things you never imagined your game can have.
like someone may come back and be like, okay, well, that was I really liked this, such and such aspect of your game, but boy, that one thing you did, like the way your character moved, that was hilarious. I've never seen that before. And now all of a sudden, okay, well, let's get rid of this and add this time. And you've already got your engine to work on. So in other words, you're not necessarily throwing away your work. You're just evolving it to the next stage. Oh, do you watch Silicon Valley?
No, not really.
I would
last year, I watched Unity and Blender all the time.
Oh, I would highly recommend that. It's a great show for developers of all. I think you're gonna love that show. But it reminds me. This conversation right now reminds me of a particular scene in it. So Silicon Valley is a show on HBO. I'm not sponsored by them, but it's amazing. About a startup company. They used to work into this big company. They start their own thing, and it's kind of a image, and it's a compression company. So the idea is you go upload MP3 or a video, and it's got some magic sauce that makes it so compressible, and it has this like peer-to-peer network where effectively, let's say you had a 5 gigabyte video, you can go watch that in your phone in seconds because of their magic sauce. Now, they don't explain it because such a thing doesn't exist. Or it does, but just not as at the Hollywood level that they portray it as. But nonetheless, this thing ends up being this masterpiece. All the tech people love it, and they get funded with a ridiculous amount of money with their A round. And there's one person, one of their investors, who's kind of just your average person, right? They're not a tech enthusiast. They might know how to move money around, but they are more of an iPhone user than a rooted Android user. And she's very much like, oh, I feel really stupid because I don't know how to use this. Maybe it's just me. And all the people that they test with are all in the tech industry. Now, the thing launches, and no one knows how to use it. And they literally spend 3 hours trying to teach a focus group how to do it. And at the end, they get it, but no one else does. And this conversation really ties very closely to that, because at the end of the day, if you're playing a game, I don't want to read a 3-hour manual as to how it works. But how do you, as a developer, solve that?
Well, you see where people are failing, and you try to make those things a little bit more simple. So, for example, I have changed initial levels a little bit, seeing where people get stuck. I removed brilliant puzzles to me, which everyone else hated, because it was really not any obvious or didn't make sense if you look like objectively.
I see.
I also added extra rooms in existing puzzles because people were missing some of the mechanics. So to make it the style, the form of the same mechanics, where you have to apply like pushing things with your feet. So yeah, you watch where people struggle, and you try to make them struggle less.
So are there lost levels, so to speak, like the Super Mario lost levels in your game, like things that are they still in the game but they're just kind of off to the side, or are there special levels you're holding back from us that might show up later?
No, basically those where I was changing the same levels based on feedback and play testing.
Gotcha.
Of course, there are lost levels, like initial levels when I started learning Blender, which were just cubes and with a grid. And I wanted to go with modular design, something like Portal has. The first Portal had, but it was not really aesthetically pleasing for this kind of game. So I erased all those levels and recreated the puzzles, totally different aesthetics.
Interesting. So we got another question in chat. Are you planning to go full-time as a game developer? Are you planning to go full-time on game developing, or will you still do some teaching, etc.? I guess, what's your future plans? Is this enough to motivate you to be like, all right, well, teaching's fun, but let's make some more video games, or maybe a mix of both?
Well, teaching is my hobby, so I'm full-time game developer for past 4 years,
Mm.
and teaching was something they had to have another game design teacher from South Korea,
Mhm.
but they didn't manage to get him, and they were looking for game designer, and they offered me the position, and it's just a couple of hours a week
Mhm.
in one term. So it was difficult this spring because I was so involved with the human, but otherwise it's I like working with those kids, and it's really fun to see them grow as game designers, and they start with making games and also start with really big projects, and we are speaking of board games, not computer games.
Ah, interesting. Do you have any suggestions for someone who's looking into Blender? Like how did you go about picking that up? By the way, guys, if I missed your questions, feel free to ask it again because it may have scrolled off my chat. Um, yeah.
Well, that's the same source for everything. It's Google and eventually YouTube.
Hmm. I like that answer.
If because you want to perform a very specific task with a blender, so I wanted to model it. So I found like 5 different tutorials with different approaches. I tried one, I tried another, and then I picked one that results in what I want to have. I need to model something else, I find another tutorial, and that adds up.
In relation to, I don't know how far along you guys are in that planning, but between releasing for the PC and what you've seen so far with releasing for the process you're starting to see with releasing to console, is there a big contrast between the two?
Well, I did not ever release a game on consoles, but I released some games for mobiles.
Mm-hmm.
And even on mobile, you get some interesting certification requirements, and for console, that's even more tough.
Ah, I see.
Then you have all the age ratings and things. So from the formal things, it's a more difficult thing to release there.
Mm-hmm.
But from the game itself, I don't see any big differences. The only really nice thing about consoles, we have quite locked hardware that we are targeting.
Mm-hmm.
So no one will complain that the game runs slowly or things like that. Because now, if someone with really old computer decides, okay, this is nice games, I will buy it. He might, if for example he has integrated a GPU.
Yep.
Uh, of 4 or 5 years old, he will not be able to play the game, and those things really concern us. With consoles, we know exactly the
Right.
horsepower they have, so it's also a nice platform to work because you can plan for experience each player will.
Right. 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 Because if it's going to work on your dev Xbox or PS4, it's going to work for the customer the same way. And the only bugs
Yeah.
that you may run into are those specific ones that anyone else would hit in the same, I guess, situation. Hey guys, can we show him some love? Thank him for joining us and taking his time out of his day to, give us not just insight but sharing his art with us. Once again, thank you very much. I hope that we should stay in touch. I'll definitely be playing more of this in the future. Hopefully, your next title, we'll be seeing it on one of my Indie Sunday streams as well. But please take your time. We'd love another masterpiece, but I'm not going to hold you to it.
Okay, thank you for having me here. It was really fun to chat to you.
Thank you. Hey guys, I hope you liked that clip. If you want to see more awesome content, be sure to hit subscribe. And let me know what you think by hitting the like button or, leaving a comment down below. Catch you later.